Do you own a CNC router and you're always looking for ideas on what to make with it? Maybe possibly ways to make money or even just ways to help out the community? Well, in this video, I'm going to show you how to make a trophy. So we're having an upcoming wrestling tournament here in town. My boys are on the wrestling team, and so they needed some team trophies. And I just thought, well, a way to give back is to make a couple team trophies. It didn't, I'm not paying for the wood. The club paid for the wood, and so all it took me was time. And it's kind of fun. I can use the CNC for something different. It shows local people things I can do. It could lead to other things that we make, and so I think it's a win-win for everybody involved. So I'm going to show you how to make this. I actually made these last year, so this is the second time I've made this exact design, but we'll get into actually how to make it right now. To start this off, we're using poplar. Now, I am not a huge fan of poplar personally. The color variations you can get in poplar can be so dramatic that it just sometimes makes it hard to get something to look consistent. Now, since we are just making like a plaque type of item, it's one, you're never going to see two of them at the same time. It's a little bit better. Plus, I found a pretty nice board, and I actually found this at Home Depot. Very consistent color. I'm going to stain this. Now, this is a 1x12. I already pre-cut these to 14 inches, and I actually sanded them up to 220 grit. So I'm going to just put some stain on these right now so that they're ready to go. When we go to the CNC, we can go ahead and do all the cuts and get it ready for paint. Now, I did some experimenting, and I found a stain color I thought looked good, Early American. So when I cut this on the CNC, I'm going to paint everything that's cut out black. So I think it'll contrast really nicely, which is really important when you're doing things like this. So if you've never stained before, you're just going to use a wipe on, and you're just going to work it into the grain. And I have a whole video on how to stain. You can check it out in my channel. And we're just going to wipe it on. I am not worrying about doing the edges or the ends because this is going to get cut out of the middle of this board. And so you're never actually going to see that. I have to stain it like after the fact. So I got a little bit too much here. I'm going to start on this next one. You just want to try to get a consistent color when you do this. And typically what you want to do, now you want to read the can of stain. Everything's a little bit different. But in general, you're going to wipe it on. You're going to let it soak in. And then you're going to come back through and wipe it off. I'm going to push this off to the side. Move to the next one. And it's just going to be the same process. And like I said, once I am done, I'm just going to wipe everything down with a clean rag, and it's going to just pick up any extra that didn't penetrate into the wood. So I'm not going to bore you with watching all this. We'll skip ahead, but that's what I'm going to do. One thing you want to remember, for rags, you always want to dispose of them properly. You can't leave them balled up in a pile in your shop. They can catch fire. Usually the recommended thing is to put them in a bucket of water, but you want to make sure you dispose of them properly. So read the can of stain again for that, but typically that's how you want to handle that. So let's get this done and we'll get on to the next step. Now I've got both sides of these boards stained, and something I like to do before I go cut on the CNC is I like to put a coat of polyurethane on it. Now the reason for that is what it's going to do is it's going to put a protective coat over top of this board. I'm going to use a masking material before I put it on the CNC. So we'll cut away what we want to cut away. The masking material will remain on this surface, and then I'll paint in the stuff that gets cut away with a black paint, so it will contrast really nicely with this color. However, I like to put a coat of polyurethane on first, and the reason for that is because if something were to happen where the paint would seep underneath that mask, it just gives me a layer that I can sand where I can get back to what this looks like without having to damage the surface. So it's just a little extra step I like to do. So I'll actually put a coat on both sides of these, and then we'll get on to cutting them out on the CNC. So I got the CNC cleaned up. Now really quick, I wanted to talk about this vacuum I got. So Shopvac contacted me, wanted to send me out a vacuum. Gave me a few choices just to use, try out, test. And they happen to have one that mounted on the wall, which actually really suited me well because I am working in limited space. And so I took them up on the offer. This is the first time I've used this. And so just my honest first opinion of it. One thing, the hose is amazingly heavy, way heavier than the other Shopvacs I've had in the past. I've had the bigger canister ones, and this hose seems way more durable than any Shopvac hose I've ever used. I love the fact that it hangs on the wall. My only gripe would be that there's not really a good place to hang the hose. Okay, so you kind of wrap it around that. It looks a little messy. Be nice if there was some kind of hose type of system that you'd have a nice way to hang it. Other than that, so far it seems great. I will soon be doing a video. We're just going to clean up the shop. I'm going to do a little shop organization. You can see I already got some lumber rack built into the wall there, but I have a few other things I want to do. So I'll give a little bit more of an in-depth review when I do that video. But for now, I just wanted to mention this and thank Shopvac for sending it out to me. It's going to get a lot of use in here. So let's get on with the project. Now, one thing I do, and if you've seen any of my other CNC videos, I like to, if I can, I like to screw the workpiece down to the board, to the base. I have toggles. They don't always hold the nicest. Screws always hold. The main thing is you gotta watch and make sure that the screws do not end up in the tool path. I know that my corners are clear of all cutting for this back cut on the keyhole and on the front cut, so I feel safe to screw these down, but always double check. You do not want to hit one of your screws in your part of your tool path, because you're going to break a bit and you could have metal flying. So only do this if you know for a fact that it's not going to be an issue. So let's go ahead and get this cut. So now I'm going to be cutting this out and wanting to paint what I cut out. So one way you can do that is you got to use a masking material. So I have a product called Oracal 651, and it is what I've found to be the best thing possible for this type of application. I've tried other model numbers out of this company's masking materials, and they don't always stick good enough. This is the only one that holds up to the cutting motion of the CNC. It holds up the best. If you use something else, you're running the risk of it peeling up, and then you're in a bind. So the way this works, I just cut off a piece that is the right size. And then it has, try to clear this up. It has a backer on it. Just got to peel off. So it peels off like this, and then you just apply it. It's very sticky. And you just got to try to work it so that you don't have bubbles. Start at one end, work it to the other end. You can always peel it up a little bit if you get a bubble, and they will work out too. I mean, it's not, even if you do get bubbles in, you can work them to the edge. And what I usually do is I get a card out, or find some kind of something with an edge to it. A piece of wood would work. And I just work any of the bubbles out. The friction of doing this also will help bond it. Just want to make sure there's no sharp edges on whatever you're using. A credit card honestly works probably about the best. I just don't have my wallet on me right now. And there's some extra here. It doesn't really matter. That's all there is to it. Now, one tip when you're doing something like this, double check where the keyhole is. And I like to just write top, so that I know when I mount this into the machine, I have it the right way. I've had it where I accidentally put the keyhole at the bottom, not paying attention. Not ideal. So we just do it like that, and then I'm gonna screw this back down, and I gotta change my bits out and get ready for the cut on the front. Okay, so we cut this all out with the V-bit. I cleaned up some of the frays. Sometimes the masking material frays along the cut edge, and all I do when that happens is I just take a little razor blade and just kind of clean up anything that frayed. There's a few other little frays right here, it looks like, but very minor. Should be fine. Some of this did not cut out quite right. We lost a little bit of the masking down in here. But what I've done is I've done a bit change. So with my machines, this Shapeoko, you have to do 2 different files. And anytime, or you have to do a different file for every bit change. So I had one file that did all the V. That's what you see right here. The next thing I have is an end mill. And the end mill is going to cut out a crown up here. For king of the island, queen of the island. I gotta do both. And then it's gonna cut the perimeter and basically cut the whole entire thing loose. So when I do this, I always keep the X and Y coordinates for the origin point the same. That way everything lines up right. The only thing I have to do with this new bit is I have to set the Z, because that bit changes where the Z origin point is. So the top of the surface, the bit sticks down further from the router, and so that changes. So as long as I have this in the same place it was, I keep the XY origin at which I have it set for this corner. I will not adjust that, so it'll be the exact same as what the V bit was. Everything should line up correctly. So I'm going to do that, and we'll get this zeroed out on the Z-axis, and then we'll cut this thing away. All right, so I've cleaned all these up and got all the little frays off of the cutting area. Now all I'm gonna do is spray paint these, and I'm gonna use a black paint, and we're just gonna hit the cutout areas. Kind of have to hit them from different angles. And this will be multiple coats. So we'll let that dry. I'll come back. I'll hit it with more coats. I'm not going to show you all that. We'll just jump to when we tear all the masking off. All right, so we have these all painted now, and I need to just take the mask off. I know that there's going to be a little paint along the edge. I'll sand that off. Hopefully none of this bled underneath and this all comes off easily. This does get a little tedious because you get into the inner parts of the numbers and you got to pick at it to get it to start to peel up. I use a razor blade typically. It tends to come up easier, and you can kind of just almost like shave it and it'll peel right off. So that's what we're going to do now. As you can already see, that black is going to contrast really nicely with that stain color. And as tedious as this might seem to peel these off, it's actually kind of fun. I don't know. I don't mind it at all. Just get underneath the corner, start peeling. So here's what I'm talking about. I just kind of go at a real low angle, and it gets right up underneath those, and they peel right off. All right, so I got them all peeled off. Now the next step is I need to cut these loose. They're still attached to the outer part. A few things about peeling these off. I do have a few spots that need touched up on the stain. When I was scraping them, I must have got a little bit into the stain layer because it almost looks like a glue spot type of look, which that's not what it is. But I may need to just go over these and touch them up just a little bit in a few spots. But the way this cut out is, you can see we have tabs on the back side. I just need to notch those off. I like to use a tool like this. It's easy, quick. There's other ways to do it, but it makes short work of it. And when I do this, it's going to leave a little bit of a nub there, and we'll just hit that with a sander and clean that up. So here it is. As I said, I knew that this was going to get a little bit of paint on this side. My whole plan all along was to sand these because I knew I was going to have to sand these tabs off. So we'll clean that up. One thing I could have done if I wanted to is I could have chose to paint the sides black. And in that case, I would have just flipped this entire thing over, maybe masked off the edge so nothing bled, and then sprayed it from this side. I didn't want to do that. You can risk a little bleed out if you do that, and I thought this would be a little safer to just take these, sand them, and clean them up that way. So I'm gonna cut these all out, and then I'll get a sander out and clean up all these edges. And then what we'll do is we'll stain these edges, and it's ready for clear coat. All right, so Got these busted all loose. I'm starting with 80 grit, and I'll probably go up to 180 grit. Just sand these edges real quick, get them looking good. All right, so I got all these sanded now. I just need to stain these edges. So I'm gonna get the stain back out here real quick. Just gonna touch those up and be extra careful I don't get any on the front surface, because that could change the color a little bit. And then we'll be ready for some clear coat. So I'm just gonna wipe it on. Then I'll wipe it off. So this is one that I didn't really mess up the front at all. I'm gonna look at these. So like here's one where the front got messed up. What I wanna do is I'm just gonna try to touch that up a little bit. And then I'm gonna let it just set for a second. There's another spot. And then I'll just wipe it off with a clean rag, and hopefully it'll at least have some color, as opposed to a spot where it didn't have color. So it was right in here. There's a spot right over here. And so this should do a good job of that. So I'm just gonna wipe that off now. And it looks fine. It has its color back, how it was. We're good to go. I'll go back to this first one again. And I'm gonna come back right now. I'm gonna wipe the whole thing. I didn't let it penetrate very long. I don't want it to be too dark. And we'll just pick up any excess color. I'm making sure I'm getting the back wiped and the top wiped too when I do this, just in case a little bit seeped out on the other surfaces. And you can see now, consistent color. We're good to go. Okay, now all I have to do is put a clear coat on, and these are done. Well, one thing I like to do usually when I have anything where I cut it out in CNC is I like to spray my clear coat on. However, I don't have any sprays. The nozzle got clogged up on it, and so I'm gonna have to just brush it on. Only problem with brushing it on is sometimes when you cut stuff out, where the cutouts are, it kind of tends to puddle a little bit. Other than that, it's not really a big deal. Don't really have to put a whole heavy coat on, because I already did coat this previously. So I'm working with pretty much a dry brush for the most part. I just need to get the edges. That's one thing, that these edges are all untreated because they got cut, stained. So I'm just going to go over those real quick. And that is all I'll need to do. I like to wipe off the backside a little, because sometimes it can drip. Aside from that, that's all I really need to do. Do that for each of these, and then they will be done. The back already has clear coat. I put that on earlier. So this is just to do a little extra seal. So finish these up, and we'll wrap this up. So there you have it. As you can see, it's a fairly simple thing to make. We didn't run into any problems, so that's good. They turned out pretty good. I'm happy with the color. I don't usually use poplar, but I think it stained well. I think the paint contrasted nicely with the stain, so that's always a good thing. One of the challenges you have when you use a CNC is to make sure that happens. The masking material held up very well. There really isn't any issues with it, and so I'm very pleased with how it turned out. You know, there's a keyhole slot in the back so they can hang it on the wall. And hopefully we have some people who enjoy this tomorrow at the tournament. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you next time.